Today I'm hugely privileged to have Jonathan Patterson, Managing Director of DWF Ventures with us. Jonathan, for me, is a pioneer in business law. He's also a real innovator, and today I'm really excited for him to share some tips and tricks about what DWF are doing particularly well.
So I think when we think about innovation in the context of DWF's business strategy, there's a few things that I think are worth thinking about. The first is just that point. It's pretty important that it's part of the business strategy. I think there's a lot of innovation going on, but it's sort of off to the side somewhere. And then when you go beyond that, I think there's two dimensions to it. There's this idea that you've got to be pragmatic and practical in what innovation results in. So I think you can't just have lots of things going on that never see the light of day, or you can never commercialise or never make any money. And then just as importantly, and something that I think gets overlooked too much actually, is also this idea of creating an organisational culture of innovation. So for me, that's not going down the route of having innovation committees and people with innovation badges and roles, but it's how do you find models and methods and engagement that means ideas can come from any corner of the organisation. So I think from a strategic perspective, if I were choosing an organisation to be in, they're the things that I would think about, because I think more often than not there's a bit of a checklist approach to innovation. You know, it's kind of we've got to have it because we've got to have it, but we're not really doing it. We'll just kind of do it over there, and what goes on in the main business is, you know, real business.
So that's the theory. DWF, I believe, are one of the best firms at putting into practice. Like you said, you're engaging different parts of the firm in different ways around different problems. One of the things that I particularly like that you talk about is Engine 1 and Engine 2 innovation. Yeah. Can you expand upon that for us?
Yeah. So Engine 1 and Engine 2 is a Bain theory around innovation, and it's the idea that you can have sustained innovation. So essentially improvements to your current business model that just make life better for your clients or customers.
So incremental.
Yeah, and they tend to be the kinds of innovations you see a lot now in the legal sector. So utilising technology, changing resource models, improving processes, and it's the idea that you make small ideas and amendments to an overall process that largely the business model stays the same. And that's really important because the sector is really competitive, and if you don't do that, you stand still and people pass you. So Engine 2 is trying to legitimise the idea that we might need to take some longer term bets really about what might happen, and also to try and categorise people's skills. So some people are natural improvers, some people are natural inventors. So we've actually utilised a kind of a sample test which gives you as an individual an idea whether you're more Engine 1 or more Engine 2, and we try and get those groups together because you've got to do both. I think the big message I took probably 5 years ago was you can't do one or the other, which I think has been the strategy historically. You know, you had conventional firms doing improvement and you had new law entrants doing the new idea stuff, and I think to be a successful business in the legal industry now, you've got to do both, and you've got to have a model for both, and you've got to have people with the skills to do both.
That's fascinating. What I'm interested in, how do you make that a reality? So you talked about people there, and I think you were touching on process as well. So on that people part, I'm really interested to understand how you at DWF are identifying people that contribute to Engine 1 and people that contribute to Engine 2.
So it's very much about providing stimulation, trying to tell stories, and trying to just kind of give people a sense of time and information to come up with some of those ideas. The other dimension, as well as engagement around culture, is skills. So in a classic legal services organisation, there's a big emphasis on development and skills, but it tends to be specialist. So you know you get deep deep learning around the intricacies of a particular law, or it's soft skills, how to present, how to influence, how to be resilient, which is all really important. But a lot of the training actually is the whole kind of left brain type logic, reason, that sort of stuff. One of the things we found is some of the stereotypes should just go out the window. So all the thing around it's millennials that come up with all the cool brand new ideas and it's other people that don't is not necessarily true. I think the more you can mix people both from a generational perspective and a skills and experience perspective, we found the better the outcomes usually. And also different projects require different mixes of skills. So some of them are quite technical, so you do need quite a lot of deep legal knowledge. Other ones are heavily technology driven, so you need that kind of technology dimension to it. And then the other bit is this, a really important role that again often gets overlooked, is this idea of a translator in the middle. So we try and find people that are really good at bridging the gap between the different parties. So even our ventures business model, the way we create new R&D prototypes is we take specialists from clients or from inside DWF in a particular subject. We take outside development partners so that they bring an outside perspective. We try and involve end users from a feedback perspective. And quite often we'll ask a technology provider or specialist provider to come in and give us the kit to play with. And in the middle we have we call them solutions roles, but they're also known as lawyer whisperers. This idea that you can contextualise what we're trying to do on a legal service by translating what people are saying and getting the design right.
I love this topic because I think people are so important. Without people, you don't get the innovation. Once you've got the people in, what are the key kind of gates that you typically put in place in order to see an idea through from flash to bang?
We think about it in 3 different phases, and we've done quite a lot of work to work out that these are the right phases for DWF. I'm not sure they're the right phases for everyone, but they definitely work for us. So the first one is literally helping people to conceptualise their idea. So you've done the engagement and the stimulants bit, and people think they've got something. And actually what happens that can be have a negative impact sometimes is they get so attached to an idea that they try and follow it through at all costs, and there's no kind of filter on it. And actually, if it's not a good idea, that's a lot of wasted time, effort, money. Law firms tend to get quite emotionally attached to certain ideas, so that they literally can last for years, even if someone's realised after several months that it's maybe not quite what they thought it was. So the first stage is helping people self-conceptualise what is the idea, and is it, by definition in this organisation, an idea that's worth more investment. And we do that through a simple question set, which tries to replay back to them. So you've had a good idea, but actually have you validated that from a external client, customer, user perspective? So you think it's a good idea, but what else have we got that suggests, what's the kind of customer empathy, if you like? And then there's questions around, can you articulate it in 200 words? Because, particularly some of our lawyers, they're great at giving us sort of, huge documents that describe in finite detail the beginnings of an idea. We talk about what resources would it take to be able to create a demo that you could talk to a client about. And there's maybe 10 or 12 pretty simple questions. You very rarely have to give them all of them. And that almost is really good at self-policing. Somebody will answer 4 or 5 of those and go, actually, I'm not sure that's as good an idea as we thought it was. So what we're not doing is sort of trying to crush their dreams by saying your idea is rubbish. And they almost try and self-police it. If you get through that stage, then what we try and do is really low-cost demos, if you like. And a demo can be as simple as, can you create a slide deck that we could happily present this to somebody important in the business or somebody important at a client to get their feedback. And then that takes you into the third stage, which is either handing that thing over into the client or the main business, which often is overlooked again, because you've had this great idea and you've tested it and it works and it's great, and then you go, oh, actually we've got to make it operational, and that's not our job really, because we're in the research and development bit, and we can't support that forever, because it's got to be, to work properly on scale, it's got to be kind of part of the operations. The other angle, which is really important, which leads into the third bit of ventures, is sometimes you create something that is that whole square peg in a round hole. So it just is operating on a different commercial model, different business model, and if you lift it or try to drop it back into the mainstream business or the client's existing business model, it'd run out of oxygen. You know, it wouldn't grow the way it does. So the third bit of the process for us is where that's right, where we're not handing it over, is creating almost like startup conditions. So you've proven something in R&D, but actually you need to do it for real in real life conditions, but not necessarily in the kind of exact business model that's there now.
Jonathan, I would love to keep asking you questions. I learn so much from you every time you speak. Thank you, mate.